one of the biggest problems with the fitness industry, and especially like strength and conditioning. The strength and conditioning world has turned into who has the cutest set and rep scheme of heavy barbells and chucking medicine balls, which is kind of like being a mechanic with a hammer and a screwdriver. Like, those are tools. It doesn't mean they're good for everything. So if they go train with somebody else, I mean, in the fitness world, everybody's got an ego, right? They want to beat you down. These guys are already getting beat up, and, you know, their bodies are pretty torn up from training. So with me, we're going to use machines. We're going to precisely apply force. We're going to do isometrics, whereas if they go somewhere else, they feel like they have to throw up, pass out, or die to get a good workout. But all you're doing is just beating them down and shutting them down more neurologically and fatiguing them, and then their training's not going to be as efficient. But that's one of the biggest problems with the fitness industry. It's a giant crock.
Yeah, and I want to echo that because, like, okay, so can a guy like me come and train at your gym, for
Absolutely.
example?
We have people that have never worked out before in the same class as a professional athlete.
That's amazing. So, because I've struggled since I got out of the military. I was in a really bad car accident. It's the reason I got out of the military. I've had a lot of past injuries and stuff like that. And dude, I've hired trainers, I've hired dietitians, I've hired freaking yoga people. I mean, I have done everything possible, and literally, I'm not blaming them. It's obviously my, it's my responsibility, right? But it's been a very difficult road, man. And there's so much information out there in the fitness world that is so contradictory. You know, you go to one guy and he tells you one thing, and then you go to another guy and he tells, oh no, we don't. That's wrong. Do this instead, or especially with diet, intermittent fasting, and calorie counting and meal prepping, and do you do cardio? Don't you do cardio? Do you stretch? Do you not stretch? I mean, it's a pretty crazy place to. When you're young, you can do it all, right? I mean, when you're in your 20s, you're in your teens, you're a young athlete, you can everything works. But when you get into your 40s and 50s and you start getting a little older, you want to stay fit, you want to stay lean. I want to look like this guy. How do I do that without freaking hurting myself? You know what I'm saying? I mean, because every time I start training hard, literally I get hurt. So I appreciate what you're saying.
And that's one of the biggest problems with the fitness industry is when you go in, they just have this assumption that everything's working.
Yeah.
So whatever compensation pattern you might have or old injuries, that haven't been addressed, and you start to apply load, whether it's through weights, could be yoga. There's a lot of different ways to apply force, but you're just going to make that problem worse until you have the blowout. So at my place, what we do, we can start out with an assessment on the table to find out what range of motion limitations you have if there is a neuromuscular issue. But you go to another place, I used to manage 16 trainers at another gym, and they would have, one of the contests was who could sleep with the most new members. So that tells you about the fitness industry.
Yes!
We need to get that guy on.
Yeah. It was a nightmare.
Do you get a plaque?
They got cars keyed, tires slashed, gum under the door handle. But
yeah, that's not good.
Was there a girl that was on the sales team that was participating here? Because she would have obviously won a competition like that.
That's a good question. I just tried to stay as far away as possible from it.